Hi, this is Brian Kim. I want to share with you case number 157 in the Best Way to Do Cataract Surgery series. This is a really tiny pupil, moderately dense lens, not super dense, but you're going to see this patient has really a strong Bell's reflex, and then you're going to see how I'm able to use the Oarlock technique to be able to straighten the eye out so I can do the cataract surgery without any difficulty. Again, I have exquisite control of the eye as I'm doing my maneuvers. Again, you want to use the Oarlock technique when you're doing one-handed maneuvers. Of course, once you're done with hydrodissection and then you're ready to go with the phaco, you'll have two instruments in the hand, and this is less of an issue at that step. So you can see this patient, this is obviously the left eye, and the patient's rotating the eye upward, which is again towards right here. I use a corneal marker, which will help me to center and size the rexus. I'm having used the cotton tip to really hold the eye, and this patient's really resisting me. Thankfully, I'm able to get a nice flat approach with my paracentesis blade, first on the right side and now on the left side. Of course, this one is going to be super easy because the patient keeps looking upward, which is again towards right here. And I'm able to get a nice flat corneal incision, flat to the iris plane, which will allow me to achieve a self-sealing incision. This is intracameral lidocaine and then intracameral epinephrine, and now some dispersive viscoelastic to coat the corneal endothelium. Now you can see there's nice viscodilation. This is the Oarlock technique. I'm trying to rotate the cannula. Instead of being straight in the incision, I'm rotating it almost more perpendicularly. I'm rotating the eye downward, and this is the triplanar corneal incision. I make a vertical groove, place the blade into the deep part of the groove tunnel, and then I enter. You can see this patient's constantly trying to turn the eye upward, and so I'm going to have to use an Oarlock technique even with my capsular rexus. So puncture the center. I'm able to get a nice flap there. I push down with the teeth closed so I can kind of determine the size of the capsulotomy. And I'm able to use both the rexus forceps and the cannula to hold the eye straight. Finish off the rexus. And this is the capsular fornix hydrodissection technique. I place the cannula under the rexus edge contra-incisionally. I can feel when I get to the end of the bag, point it down, get a nice fluid wave decompressing on the left side, and then hooking the peripheral lens on the right side, and the lens begins to spin. Sweeping some more on the left side, and spinning the lens a little bit more there. Irrigating the surface of the eye, lifting the incision with the chopper, going in with irrigation off to minimize Descemet's trauma, removing the surface epinuclear material. As you can see, I'm using the chopper to protect the iris, and this is in slow motion. I'm going to pronate my hand, sliding the chopper underneath the rexus edge contra-incisionally, rotating the chopper vertically now, and then also rotating the phaco vertically sub-incisionally. This is a soft material lens. I'm able to impale the lens, bringing the instruments together. You can see that fracturing of the lens, that's double chop. Pronating my left hand again with the chopper, sliding the chopper underneath the rexus edge under the right heminucleus. Once I get out to the equator, I rotate it vertically, making sure I'm catching the peripheral lens. I pull the chopper centrally toward the phaco tip, and then I'm able to fracture the right heminucleus in half, as you can see here. Using a little bit of vacuum to try to grab that first piece, nothing really happens, so I go after it again, and I place the chopper underneath the right heminucleus once again. I pull the chopper centrally toward the phaco tip, performing another cross chop maneuver, spreading the lens material away, and then again protecting the iris edge, the pupillary edge with the chopper, and then grabbing that first quadrant up again with some vacuum, and then emulsifying the lens piece. Going after that other piece with the chopper, going underneath the rexus edge, pulling it centrally toward the phaco tip, and then crushing that fragment again as well, using some vacuum to pull that lens piece up, and then emulsifying the lens piece. So that's a piece of that second quadrant there. Try to loosen it up, and then pull it up out of the bag using the chopper to hook the lens up, and it pops out of the bag. So again, I'm using the chopper to hook the lens pieces up. I'm also using the chopper to protect the pupil edge, being mindful of when to activate the vacuum and ultrasonic energy, and making sure I'm activating the vacuum and ultrasonic energy in the central safe zone, away from the pupillary edge, away from the cornea and the posterior capsule. Go ahead and rotate that second heminucleus in front of me, placing the chopper underneath the rexus edge, contraincisionally, pulling it centrally toward the phaco tip. You saw that fracturing and sudden loss of resistance. Grab that piece up, fracturing it into smaller and smaller pieces, and then emulsifying the lens pieces. Nudging that other fragment, placing the chopper around that fragment, using some vacuum to lift it, crushing it between instruments, and then emulsifying the lens pieces. You can see this is a rather small pupil, but because I know where my instruments are, I know what I'm doing, I know where I am, I'm definitely within the capsular bag when I'm doing all these maneuvers. I'm very confident that everything's going smoothly and everything is safe. Oh, I grabbed the iris a little bit. Should have protected the iris with the chopper when I did that maneuver, but that's okay. I let go real quickly. I'm trying to find the edge of the epinuclear material here. And then I'm using the chopper to try to hook the peripheral epinucleus here. And because I've done this so many times, I know that I'm in the capsular bag when I do that maneuver. So you can see I was able to hook that epinucleus by sweeping it around. And now the epinucleus is essentially removed. Some of that subincisional epinucleus is a little stuck. I got it all out. So I take the chopper out, push BSS in, take the phaco tip out, and I go in with the INA handpiece, start subincisionally. See some of that lens material is coming out. That's still some of that epinuclear material that was still in the bag. Switch to polish mode. I'm very ginger when I'm going after the cortical material in the small pupil situation. I like to go in polish mode, and if I snag anything, I switch to cortex mode. But essentially, this is a blind maneuver, and I do trust polish mode that I'm able to polish under the rexus edge without putting any traction on the zonules. I don't really like to sweep in this case or pulse the BSS because I really can't visualize the rexus edge. So I go ahead and push some viscoelastic in. You can see the Bell's reflex is still quite strong in the patient. I'm able to place a single piece acrylic lens, and I turn the eye away from me so I can see the capsular rexus edge distal to me. Now I can see clearly that the lens is going underneath the rexus edge away from me. Quickly transition to the IA, go in with irrigation off, activate irrigation, and then also go with the Maltzman. The Maltzman will help me make sure that the lens is definitely in the bag. Go underneath the optic, tilting it, removing all the viscoelastic from within the bag, and I'm using the Maltzman to help kind of keep the lens tilted. And since the fact that the lens tilted without any translational movement, I'm pretty confident that both haptics are within the bag here. You can see this iris is a little floppy. It went to my paracentesis when I took my chopper out before, and it's coming to the paracentesis once again with the Maltzman here. So release it with the INA here, good. Again, the Maltzman really gives me a lot of flexibility. It protects the iris, but it also helps me retract the iris so I can see and make sure that both haptics are in the bag. So I went ahead and remove all the viscoelastic using visco mode, being careful to stop irrigation when I come out with the INA handpiece, and then I'll hydrate my incision. So again, this is a patient with a 1 to 2 plus dense lens, tiny pupil, a little bit of IFIS, but not too bad. And also this severe Bell's reflex, and I did the Oarlock technique to straighten the eye You can see that there's a lot of different components to the techniques, and mechanical fracturing, double chop, cross chop, I was able to easily fracture and disassemble the lens, remove the lens pieces. And remember, I'm hooking the peripheral lens pieces up out of the bag. I'm able to use a chopper to protect the pupil as well. And again, using the Oarlock technique to keep the eye straight or under the most critical maneuvers during the capsulorhexis. And you saw that this was a very gentle surgery. Remember, don't downplay these other things such as the rings and the hooks and all these things. They can cause damage too. And I've seen people who've had horror stories using these devices and then causing really serious iris trauma. If you know how to do the case without having to do all that extra manipulation, less contact of the iris means less pigment dispersion, less inflammation, less likely chance for CME and pressure problems. And so this is why I prefer to do cataract surgery this way. I'm very confident with the double chop, cross chop mechanical fracturing that I know where my instruments are. I'm able to very efficiently and systematically disassemble the lens, hooking peripheral lens pieces up out of the bag, protecting the pupillary edge with the chopper, and this patient did quite well. So I hope this was helpful to you, and I thank you for your attention.